Imperial Maccagno, royal court, land for oneself. This is the bombastic, but correct title to describe a minor, but in some ways exceptional, history that has distinguished the town of Maccagno Inferior for almost 600 years. Let's start with the geographical framework. Maccagno, today in the municipality of Maccagno con Pino e Vedasca, is the only village on the eastern shore of Lake Maggiore to be distinguished in two villages by the course of the Giona River and by a slight difference in height that has distinguished its name, Maccagno Superior, north of the river and at the mouth of the Val Vedasca, Maccagno Inferior, to the south, around a sheltered gulf. This geographical separation has favored different destinies over the centuries. Maccagno Superior, in fact, has followed the history of all the municipalities of Lake Maggiore, of the eastern shore and part of the western one, ending up in the political and administrative orbit of Milan and, through this, of the various rulers who have succeeded one another, the French, the Spanish, the Austrians, etc. Perhaps because of its secluded position, however, Maccagno Inferior became an object of interest for the powerful family of Milanese origin of the de Mandello, or Mandelli, who in about 1210, for others in the first quarter of the same century, failing to impose their own lordship on the municipality of Cannobio, obtained the very small fief of Maccagno Inferior from Otto IV, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, who still boasted the direct dependence of some territories, so-called royal courts, around the Verbano, a legacy of the fragmentation of the Carolingian Empire. Among these, Cannobio, on which Maccagno Inferior depended, a fact that explains the extension here of the interests of the Mandelli family attested to Cannobio. Illinois small village of Maccagno Inferior, and a very small patch of land belonging to it that also included the town of Montevenero, for centuries a place of summer pastures, was thus elevated to an imperial fiefdom, that is, a fief linked by a privileged relationship with the emperor mediated exclusively by the feudal lord and the vicar imperial in Italid in way. Maccagno Inferior became a land for itself, a real autonomous state within the surrounding domains, independent of the flow of history and solid as long as the empire of reference remained firm in its changing variants and gained, as well as relative peace, peculiar conditions of fiscal, jurisdictional and administrative autonomy, a market, granted by Charles V in 1536, and the right to mint money in a special mint. It was not easy to maintain oneself in such a condition of privilege. Milan, for example, tried several times to claim for itself the rights to the fief of Maccagno Inferior, at least the tax ones, as early as 1279. In 1679 the Viennese baron Walderode won the auction for the devolution of the fief. The last Mandelli died without heirs, but a cadet branch of the family managed to keep in his hands the handkerchief of land that obeyed, by virtue of agreements and writings of almost 500 years earlier, to the emperor. Only in 1692 did the fief pass to the Borromeo family. However, in the space of just over a century, none of the noble family could face the Napoleonic star spring which, overwhelming centuries-old institutions, did not hesitate in front of the small and glorious imperial fiefdom of Maccagno Inferior. There is no doubt, General Bonaparte ruled in 1796. Maccagno had to be reunited with the Republic Ciasulpina. The procedures for the perpetual forfeiture of the fief began, sealed with a special ceremony, the raising of the Tree of Liberty and the display of the Republican banner on the Lake Square. It was December 22, 1797. After almost 600 years, Maccagno Imperial was part of the geographical perimeter of Italy and the destiny of its history. After the unification of Italy, it ended up in the administrative orbit of the twin Maccagno Superior, chosen as the municipal seat also by virtue of a geographically larger territory. There were numerous difficulties for the small village, and for the family that ruled its fate, to cope with the pressures of the neighbors, the powerful Milan, the pressing Switzerland and the various rulers who ruled the fate of Italy until Napoleon. To resist these pressures, the Mandelli did not hesitate to resort to false privileges to sink the origin of the imperial fief as far back as possible in time and, above all, to link him to the figures of the most powerful and important emperors of the Holy Roman Empire. At the beginning of the 17th century, the Mandelli began to circulate a legend so cleverly orchestrated that the innocent lie managed to survive for long centuries. The rumor told of how and when the family had obtained the investiture of the fiefdom, not around 1210, but directly from the hands of Otto I of Saxony, in 962, returning from the military campaign against the rebellious Berengar II, King of Italy. Otto would have shipwrecked with his escort in front of the roadstead of Maccagno Inferior, saved and rescued by its inhabitants. As a sign of gratitude, the solemn investiture would have derived. To give the greatest possible veracity to the story, the Mandelli did not hesitate to hire some counterfeiters who tried their hand at false imperial privileges, one attributed to Frederick II of Swabia, to retrocede the origin of the mere and mixed empire over Maccagno to the time of the legend. Those false diplomas survived over the centuries, and only around 1970 were they unmasked thanks to accurate historical analysis. But the legend, by now, had fueled another legend, and so, even today, in Maccagno Inferior, the landing of the Emperor, Otto I, has been celebrated in Maccagno Inferior since 1962, on the occasion of the presumed millenary anniversary, with a well-attended masked parade. Instead of impossible wars, it was the battles of paperwork that kept the Maccagno fiefdom safe over the centuries against the aims of Milan and the envy of the neighboring domains.